Today on Commander Replay, we check out this Captain Sisay Legendary Lockdown deck. Can our opponents survive Lockdown? Find out next on Commander Replay. The 2020 GoFundMe is active. If you want to do one-on-one deck reviews with me, or get one of your decks played on video, be sure to check out the link in the description below. Welcome back everyone, playing some Captain Sisay today, and today's deck list comes to us from Patreon supporter Jared. Take a look at this opening hand. That's a no-lander, that's going to be a mulligan. So, take the mulligan. 2 lands, no ramp, Eldamri's Call. What can Eldamri's find? How many lands in the deck? 36 lands in the deck. Do we go to 6 cards? Hikori we don't need until we lock things up. Kataki's is interesting. Maybe not the best against Simic. Sisay might have some stuff. I think we mulligan to 6. There was nothing really jumping out at me as like really good early on the curve for the Eldamri's, so reasonable chance that we don't play Magic if we can't get something good right there. So this hand looks a lot better. This is 4 lands and a Kodama's Reach. Probably going to ditch a land right here. I do like having an Akroma's Vengeance around. Can solve some nasty problems for us. So yeah, we'll just discard a Plains, or put it to the bottom rather. And so yeah, we're playing Captain Sisay. Kind of weird in that I've had 2 Captain Sisay decks come in, both really close to each other. I filmed the other one first, but I think this one may get posted before the other one. We'll just see what happens with that. So to my Patreon and GoFundMe supporters waiting for their Captain Sisay decks, they're coming. They are coming. Just hang tight. But yeah, this deck is by Jared. It's called Legendary Hate. It's got some nasty stuff like Hikori, Kataki, some Legendary Hate Bears, some general nastiness. Going to be a little bit different than the other Captain Sisay deck we looked at, which was a hard ramp deck. This one, more about slowing the game down a little bit. Does have 1 Eldrazi up here at the top. Has some other big stuff with Great Henge, Ugin, Vorinclex. So this one's going to be a bit more value-based and slow the game down, where the other Sisay I looked at is more about ramp like crazy and drop bombs on your opponents. So 2 different ways to play Sisay, kind of interesting. Opponent casts Vampiric Tutor, thinking about it for a little while. There's the Wrath of God, always handy to have around. Let's just go for the Flagstones right here. And nothing else to do, so we'll tap out and pass. Lands for our opponent's turn 1. And the Vampiric Tutor. See if they have a Mana Rock coming on their second turn here. Goes for Reliquary Tower. Yep, there's the Soul Ring, so I would guess that they tutored for it. Not a lot in the way of colored mana yet, though. A lot of colorless mana. Okay, there's a Signet. That's going to help them out. Now they've ramped pretty good. This is where that Akroma's Vengeance may be handy. We're still many turns away from it, but once we can eventually get to it, getting rid of all these mana rocks is probably going to be helpful, set them back quite a bit on top of whatever creatures they have in play, so yeah. So Sisay in general, I think, is just an interesting card. I mean, the ability to tutor for any legendary card is certainly very interesting. There's a lot of different ways you can go with it. One of the oldest versions of this deck that I ever saw that I fell in love with when I did see it was Kaldra. They just went for Kaldra super early and, you know, put all the pieces together nice and quick, and then would beat you down to death with Kaldra, and that was a ton of fun. Ever since then, I always wanted to do my own take on that. But now that I have my other Sisay deck, not really feeling the need to do it so much anymore. But it still leaves plenty of other things, plenty of other legendaries that you can get with Sisay. And, you know, just a lot of different ways that you can focus it and focus on what you want your primary tutor targets to be. And especially the fact that, like, they're really pushing Commander this year. So there's going to be a lot of new legendaries on the way. And it makes a card like this kind of stay relevant in a sense, because there's always something new that you can go grab with it. So I think it's kind of interesting. Can be a little bit overpowered at times. It did have a CEDH deck at one point. I think it was Paradox Engine based, and I'm not sure if it still holds up with Paradox Engine having been banned. So haven't seen one since then. My guess would be that it probably lost a little too much juice, but you never know. Opponent drops down a Star Compass. Ooh, Brokkos got a Talisman, and after the Signet, they're producing 4 extra mana from their artifacts each turn. That is so much ramp. It's turn 2. The one good thing is that they're a little bit low on cards at 3. Hopefully they don't have giant things in their hand. It's really the one thing we can hope for. Let's go ahead, play a Plains right there, and pass the turn. Nothing else we can do. We draw into an Ulamog, which, yeah, it's going to be a few turns on that. Gonna be a minute. So, taking a look at what our opponents are playing. First up, we have Zombie Caller piloting Brokkos Apex of Forever. I think we've seen their list a few times now. It's a mutate deck. I haven't seen anything else super crazy from it, but, you know, you put a bunch of keywords on Brokkos, and it will threaten commander damage pretty easily, so you gotta watch out for that. So far, from what I've seen, just kind of a Sultai aggro deck, way less busted than all of the other Sultai commanders, as far as I've seen, so, yeah. Next up, we have Asgard Iron piloting Sisay Weatherlight Captain. That's a commander that I play a lot, and have started facing somewhat recently, and it's pretty strong. It's pretty strong. The ability to tutor things out of your deck, really good. Reminds me a little bit of our commander, the original Sisay. Ours go into our hand, though, not straight to the battlefield, but Sisay Weatherlight Captain, also very cool. Gets to do the legendary thing as well. Also cares about colors. Puts them straight into play, which is pretty sweet. And I think the one thing that I do like about Weatherlight Captain is that there's a little bit of a build-up in that, like, you need to be able to set Sisay up to really go wild with it. Like, you need to get some additional power or have a lot of colors in play. If you fire a lot of removal at that deck and they're stuck with Sisay as a 2/2, then they can't really tutor that much out of their deck. It's not really worth paying 5 to go get, like, a legendary land or a 1-drop. Unless you really have nothing else going on. So it is a very beatable deck, but it is also very strong in that it does say tutor legendary things onto the battlefield. So all pretty good stuff. Brokkos coming into play. Yep, no mutate, but it is a 6/6 with trample, so it'll kill you if you don't deal with it. And finally, we've got Hammerbangers piloting Pier and Toothy. I believe we did see their deck one time somewhat recently, and I think this is just going to be +1/+1 counters, evasion, and hit things really hard, which from what I remember the last time was actually pretty effective. Like, it can just spit out some damage. These cards get really big really quickly and don't cost a lot of mana to get into play, so they are threatening. Plus the fact that, like, Toothy's always lurking, ready to draw a million cards when it leaves the battlefield, so that's never good. Here's an Ominous Seize for opponent. Yep, whenever you draw a card, put a Foreshadow counter on it, remove 8 counters, create an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token. Mana Gorger Hydra coming into play. That's a pretty good one. Yep, it's really good in a +1/+1 counter deck. Really good in general. If opponents just play a couple spells, then it's huge, and then it tramples you to death. Yeah. Brings us back to our turn. We draw a Karamitra. I'm actually pretty excited about that. I think that's going to help us out quite a bit. So, play the Kodama's Reach. We've got double white in play already. I think I'm going to go for 2 green right here. 1 into play, 1 into the hand. And we'll pass like that. So, getting caught up a teeny bit. Now, with the Karamitra, I think I actually like what Karamitra does. Next turn, we should be able to go Karamitra, and then as long as we hit a land after that at some point, I think we can just go straight into the Akroma's Vengeance. And I'm having a feeling by that point that we'll probably want to be doing that, given all the mana rocks that just happened, this Mana Gorger Hydra, and plus the fact that it's probably about to get followed with Pier and Toothy. Kind of set ourselves up for, like, the mid-game board wipe, and then really saving all of our gas for after the board wipe. Here's a Miri's Guile for opponent. That's a pretty good card. There are times, not all the time, but there are many times where I do like this better than top, just because you don't have to keep pumping mana into it. In their situation right now, with all the mana rocks they drop, the mana isn't that big of a deal, but if you haven't ramped all that much, then continuously putting more mana into top at certain points can be a little bit tricky. It's also nice in that it doesn't slow the game down in the same way that top does. Like, you don't just keep looking and constantly looking. Like, it's like, oh, I just looked, I'm going to look again, and, you know, you get to look one time, it's at your upkeep, it's a little bit better, keeps the game moving along a little bit more than top does, in my opinion, at least on Magic Online. But I don't know that I'm, like, dropping breaking news and saying that top slows the game down, so. Oh, by the way, this Sisay deck is going to be a Shrines deck. I just remember that they said that in the chat before the game. This is going to be a super budget deck. I think they said it was like 5 tickets on Magic Online or something like that, so not going to be dropping the really big, powerful stuff. We've got no budget restriction on our deck, so that just inherently kind of gives us some amount of advantage that they aren't necessarily going to have. Fast mana is kind of the big deal there. But Sisay is still very strong. The Shrines, in general, mass enchantments are hard to interact with. We have this Akroma's Vengeance, but, you know, in general, most decks have maybe 3 ways to mass remove enchantments from the game, either by destruction or exile. So, you know, most decks don't have loads and loads of enchantment removal. And if you just throw a bunch of enchantments onto the board, it's usually pretty hard to deal with. Parallel lives for opponent. If you would make a token, create twice that many tokens instead. Yep. Not doubling season yet. Doesn't double the counters. No attacks from the Mana Gorger. I would have sent it somewhere. You got a 5/5 with trample. There's a Grasslands. Ooh. Well, that puts us on the forest then. That does give us our 6th land, though. And we'll be able to figure out something to do with that. So, cast Karamitra, Mana Gorger will continue to trigger. We are still blockerless, which is probably not great right now. We'll see what happens this turn. If a bunch of big creatures come down, we might be on just Wrath of God. Although, untap land, and I might go for Akromas. Thinking about Akromas versus the Enchantress deck or versus the Shrine deck. Means that we probably want to try to hold on to it a little bit. Again, because there isn't like tons and tons of stuff. But there is an Ugin in our deck. Maybe with Ugin we can burn it. Except that's just a single tap of Sisay, and Ugin is a card that, like, you probably want to tutor for anyway. It's just really powerful, so. Miri's Guile for the Brokkos. Diabolic Tutor for the Brokkos. I'm sure that's going to help. If I were them, I'd probably be going for card draw. I don't know what they have in hand, but usually when you ramp like crazy, the thing you need is card draw to refill, and then once you do that, then you're probably very far ahead. Brokkos going to go with the Sisay. The other Sisay, sure. They take a hit for 6 commander. They'll get another counter on the Ominous Seas as it goes to their upkeep. Or their draw step, rather. So they drop another land. Looks like they don't have a Wooburg stack yet. They're going to play a Honden of Seeing Winds, though. Yeah, it's a pretty good card. Pretty good card. So they'll get to draw a card for each shrine they control on their upkeep. Currently 1. And it's legendary, so it pumps up Sisay a bit. This Mana Gorger, it's an 8/8. Here comes a Chasm Skulker. I think I'm on board for the Wrath of God right now. Probably going to try and hold this Akroma's Vengeance. Brings back to our turn, a Signet. Here's a little bit of mana ramp. No attacks from the Mana Gorger. If I were Hammer, I would have sent that thing somewhere. When you have damage, you need to use it. Like, you can't just sit back. Now, there are times where it makes sense to block, but, like, I don't think this is one of them. You've got a big creature with trample, you got to be putting that damage on someone because, you know, with creatures especially, creatures don't stick around forever, so people will wipe the board, and that people is me right now. I know it does make bad blood when you, take like 25% of someone's life total early in a game, but you also don't want them to get to like turn 10 with 40 life, so. Play the Wrath of God. Mana Gorger continues to trigger. I mean, I think we have to blow the Mana Gorger up right there. Also the Chasm Skulker. We don't want those getting any bigger than they are. Mana Gorger, by the time it gets back to us, will probably be 15 power. So, that's way more life than I'm really looking to give up. Plus, opponent's commander's out of play. We get rid of the Sisay. It just slows everyone down. And what I'm doing right here is just like, that's how you play a white deck. You ramp for a little while. You wipe the board while opponents are doing stuff. And then after the board wipe, you start doing the thing you really want to be doing. So play Grasslands. It'll come in tapped, and we'll pass the turn like that. Opponent will get a Miri's Guile trigger. Opponent goes for an Insatiable Hemophage. This one was not on my radar. Death Touch, when it mutates, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is the number of times it's mutated. Interesting. So they pass the turn like that. Opponent gets an Ominous Seas trigger, draws with the Honden of Seeing Winds. Yeah, getting that card draw. Passes with all their mana up. 5, 6 open mana. They have nothing to do with it. It's got to be an instant of some kind. They would have at least recast their commander. Hoping it's not like a big counter spell, one of the nasty ones, like, was it Spell Swindle, or what's the one that makes treasures? Is that Spell Swindle? I can't remember now. Toothy coming into play. Yep, Toothy's pretty good. Would have preferred Toothy was in for the board wipe, but can't do much about it now. It leaves the battlefield so good. Drawing 10 cards late in a game is like, doesn't just win you the game, but I mean, it puts you super far ahead. It can just win you the game. Sometimes it will. Brings back to our turn. Ooh, that's a Gaddock Teeg. Well then. Crack this Grasslands. Get a Canopy Vista. Let's get Captain Sisay. That'll trigger Karamitra. All about that. Get our ramp going. We have a decent number of forts. Let's get a plains right here. Ooh, we can get non-basics? Wow, that's crazy. Get Temple Garden into play tapped. And now we live up to the name of legendary hate by casting this Gaddock Teague. And I'm sure that's going to elicit an from our opponents. Another Karamitra trigger. Yep. And haven't done the math yet, but that's going to put us pretty close to that Ulamog, I think. Is this the counterspell? Guess that puts me on... Oh, man. Let's get the Mistveil Plains, yeah. And we'll pass like that. Hope we untap with our Sisay. If we do, we go find awesome things. Even if we don't, let's check our mana. We're on 9 mana. Land off the top gets us an Ulamog. Things we could go for: Avacyn, Vorinclex, Elishnorn, Ajani Unyielding, Elspeth. Another Miri's Guile trigger for opponent. Rearranging that top. Here comes Brokkos onto the Insatiable Hemophage, so I think we're about to lose a little bit of life. That will also give Brokkos Death Touch. Death Touch Trample is no joke. Makes it really hard to block, and that is commander damage. So we all lose one, down to 39. They go up a little bit. I have to imagine that, like, we're the target. No, not yet. Going at the Peer Toothy opponent. Yeah, Toothy is scary. It's not huge yet, so now's the time. Any point after this, Toothy's probably going to be huge, and it's just difficult to attack into it. Whew. There also might be some history there, now that I'm thinking about it. Opponents might be playing off of the fact that they've seen this before, because they've got him to 12 commander damage now, down to 27. Well, I guess they sent one hit over to the other Sisay as well. Just surprised we haven't taken any hits yet. Another counter on the Omnises. We're going to be seeing some 8/8s soon. 6 counters currently, 2 away after the Honden trigger. Arboreal Grazer. Reach. When enters the battlefield, may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. They do. Scry Temple for opponent. I told opponent, don't be afraid to send an attack my way. They said they're not. They're just dealing with the bigger threat. Yeah, I think there's some history there between these two decks. So I think that's what's playing out in this game. Brings it back to our turn. We have untapped. Do we just play this God Pharaoh statue? Interesting. Let's tap Sisay before anything happens. See what our best options are here. Wouldn't mind another creature just to trigger the Karamitra, but we also should think about locking our opponents down a little bit. God Pharaohs will definitely help us on that front. All right, we've got a lot of choices. We got a Planeswalker. We can't really defend for a Planeswalker, so maybe not yet. Avacyn is pretty cool. Maybe we just go for an Avacyn. Are there white opponents at the table? There is a Sisay. They could have Exile. The other ones... Simic might have Bounce. Brokkos could have things. They could have things. I don't think we're going that big yet. Maybe we're going for Rekai? Ooh, maybe we're going for Ugin. So if we go Ugin, that reduced the cost of stuff by 2. Puts us just a little bit short of going Ugin into God Pharaohs. I mean, I guess that means we just start the party with Vorinclex? Could go for an Elspeth. Could go for an Avacyn. Can we get Rekai into God Pharaohs? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, let's do that. That's an extra land. That's a little bit of card draw. We're not going wild, but should be pretty good. So cast Rekai, get a land, use the ability, drop a forest into play, and then try this God Pharaoh statue. That'll trigger Rekai. We'll get to draw a card. We draw an Elspeth. Sweet. See if this resolves. It resolves. Excellent. So casting spells will be an utter nightmare for our opponents now. Their spells cost 2 more to cast, and at the beginning of our end step, they each lose 1 life. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. If you don't want your opponents really doing much of anything, God Pharaoh statue is a nasty card, especially after a board wipe when there's not like a ton in play. Everything's kind of still in hand. Yeah, this thing is good. Miri's Guile trigger for opponent. Opponent's going for a Rishgar's expertise. Yeah, that's pretty good. Their free cast, so they draw back up to 7 cards, well, I guess 8. And then their free cast is this Phyresis, which puts Infect on their commander. It's now a 6/6 with Infect. I'd imagine they probably want to come our way with the Infect. They've done commander damage to the other 2, so like it makes the most sense to come our way. Also, we've got this God Pharaoh statue down with a Karamitra, a Rekai, and a Captain Sisay, which is all powerful stuff. So I'm expecting to take a little bit of infect right here. Yep, here it comes. I don't think we need to worry about blocking. It's only 6 infect. Still have a little bit of room left there. But it's probably going to put us on the Elspeth. Try and wipe the board of the big stuff, I think. 6 infect on us. Stay at 39, though. Somehow that puts 6 commander damage on us. Is that how that's supposed to work? I guess it is. Never thought about it. Haven't played nearly enough, or even seen nearly enough, in fact, to have given it that much thought. Return to nature on the God Pharaoh statue. Yeah, that pretty much has to happen. God Pharaoh statue down. So at the end step, that was an end step play, by the way, where they shot the God Pharaohs, so that makes sense. Ooh, that's an Arasta of the Endless Web. That's a pretty good card, especially in an enchantment deck. Opponent's going to Beast Within the Brokkos. Okay. Threat has been eliminated. They probably could have held that. I imagine that they would have just come back our way with the Brokkos. But trying to get that spell out of their hand, I guess, before the Arasta, so kind of forces the action a little bit, but I think, the spiders are good, but I think they're better off holding that removal up. Beast Within is such a powerful piece of removal. It wasn't threatening them then right now. Usually you just want to hold it until, you absolutely need to shoot the thing, and they didn't absolutely need to shoot the thing yet. However, all that in mind, I am guilty quite often of burning my removal just a little bit too early. What I've realized is that because I played so much Commander, because a lot of it's on video and this and that, whenever I see a card, I'm thinking about the worst thing that's ever happened to me with that card. So I'm just like, I gotta kill it immediately. And not every card is like that all the time. So, that does lead me to spend removal earlier than I should. And it's been on my mind a bit lately, so I've been trying to counteract that a little bit and just hold my removal just a bit longer. Especially when it's cheap spot removal. The big question for me, and I posted this on Twitter a while ago, was if you see an Oracle of Moldiah early in a game, your opponent plays one, and you have Swords to Plowshares in hand, no other removal, do you Swords that Oracle? And it was more or less a split vote. I think it was about 60-40, 60% in the yes column, and, 40, maybe 45%, whatever the numbers were, in the no column. So, pretty divided on the issue, and, many people saying it will bury you in value if you don't kill it. Others saying you better wait for the other big thing that they're probably going to cast after it. So having paid attention to that line of play a little bit, specifically with Oracle, having played Oracle a bunch myself in my own Sisay deck, there's plenty of times where you won't hit any lands at all with the Oracle, unless you're playing a lands deck. If you're playing Tatiova or Windgrace, something that's got probably 45 lands in it, then those decks absolutely shoot it because there's such a high chance of hitting lands off the top. If it's just a normal deck that's got an Oracle in it, maybe not. You kind of got to feel out what else is going on around it, but yeah. Opponent does play a Cultivate. It's pretty good, and that does create a Spider. There's some open mana over here. They've shown one counterspell. Rewind isn't necessarily the first counterspell you go for, so there could be more. I think that puts me off of trying the Ulamog this turn. Really want everyone to be tapped out, or at least the blue mana to be tapped out. I really don't want to get it countered, at least if it makes it to play. Well, I mean, it's indestructible, so if it makes it to play, it's pretty hard to deal with. It's kind of its whole game. So we've got this Elspeth in hand. Elspeth is pretty attractive as a play this turn. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 11 mana. Tap Sisay, see what we can get. Want to double check Kataki real quick and make sure that it's only artifacts. Yeah, it's just artifacts on Kataki. Opponents don't seem to be wiping the board. That could be a case for Yisan. And maybe also Thousand Year Elixir. We're not under immediate pressure right now, so we can get a little bit of a pass, I think. Could be Vorinclex time. What did I say, 11? Yeah, I think it's Vorinclex time. Let's go for it. This will also get us a land and a draw, which I can also appreciate. So, cast Vorinclex, Rikai, and Karamita trigger. There's a Harmonize. And we'll get a land. Let's grab a Plains. It resolved. Wasn't entirely expecting that. That does mean we can slam this Elspeth. Rikai will trigger once again. Day of Judgment. The value train is leaving the station. Plus Elspeth. Get some tokens. Without any form of evasion, I don't know that makes sense to go anywhere with this Karamitra. Such a good blocker, so we'll just leave it back. Opponents will certainly be looking to do some damage to our Elspeth, so Might as well leave up the blockers. Vorinclex probably makes a little bit more sense as an attacker next turn just because of the trample. But also planning to get the Ulamog going really soon. I mean, if we untap with Vorinclex, then yeah, we can do a lot of things. We can do a lot of things if we untap with Vorinclex. Opponent's tapping some mana into Vorinclex. Yep. The first thing they do better be to get rid of the Vorinclex. It is in fact the first thing that they will do with this hero's downfall. Yeah. Nice play by our opponent. They will lose 3 lands into the Vorinclex thing. Creates another spider. Still does not feel great, though. Anything other than, like, a Swords or a Path feels pretty awful into a Vorinclex. Vorinclex down. We can get it back if we want to. We've got Mistveil Plains. That's a Diabolic Revelation X3. That's a pretty good card. 3 cards could be a lot of things. So opponent goes up to 9 cards at hand. Still has a Reliquary Tower. Ooh, doesn't untap. Yeah, several of their lands do not untap, so... luckily, they've still got all their mana rocks in play. We have not popped this Akroma's Vengeance yet. You know, opponent hasn't really gone wild with the shrines. Haven't really feel like we needed to. But they are on 9 counters now with this Ominous Sea. So I think it's going to be Kraken time. They might wait to do it at the end step, though. It probably makes the most sense. Opponent does have a bunch of Reach Spider tokens. Those are pretty good. Not going to be the easiest thing to get through. Oh, is that a Prison Term? No, Prison Realm. Enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. When it enters the battlefield, scry 1. Where are we going? Karamitra? We've got some stuff. Karamitra's good. Sisay's pretty good. We'd have to recast it, although we have quite a bit of mana. Rekai's good because it's a value engine. It shuts down our value a little bit. Still have some other value pieces, though, so maybe it doesn't solve the problem. Toothy becomes very problematic the longer it stays in play. Or you could just eat a token, because you know it's not coming back. If it were me, I'd probably go for the Karamitra just because it's the hardest thing to get rid of. Yep, that's where they're going. So if we play in Akroma's Vengeance at some point, we'll get our Karamitra back. That does reduce our blocking power for Elspeth, though. And what does opponent have? They've got a Toothy and a 2/2. As much spiders over here, that could be a problem. They just turn everything sideways. It might be taking down Elspeth a little bit. Yeah, just send them all. Why not? Opponent's got 3 things coming in. We can block 1 spider safely, assuming they don't have tricks. They might. But, you know, I think it's... We'll block 1 more, and then I'm going to save these 2 to block these 2 things from the Pyr and Toothy opponent. Elspeth is a +1, by the way, so we're not super close to that ultimate. And with things attacking it, it's going to take quite a while. It's already turn 9, like... You have to ask the question, how many turns do we reasonably expect this game to go? Probably take us to, what, turn 13 at least to ultimate this thing? So it'll probably be more about just, like, keeping it in range to be negatived and, you know, at least keeping it 1 above that to keep it alive and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. This could be a good turn for 1,000-Year Elixir, maybe. I don't know. Got Ulamog and Harmonize. Those are both good things. Elspeth has stayed dark now. Weird animation. There, it seems to have come back. Oh, that's a Doubling Season. That's a card you got to watch out for. So Toothy can get huge. That might be a reason to minus the Elspeth. Although we'd lose Elspeth if we did it. Maybe we're on Ulamog. Shoot some stuff. Opponent's going to get to Proliferate as that comes in. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Proliferate. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Take a quick peek at our deck list. It's getting later, and I'm trying to figure out a way to, like, close the game out. Got the Ulamog, but even so, Ulamog doesn't just win the game. We still need to attack for several turns, especially given the high life totals, the tokens on board, high library counts. Yep, that's a Soul Ring. Yeah, so I think we're on minus the Elspeth right here, because this Toothy is about to be out of hand. Oh, maybe, are we on the Akroma's Vengeance yet? Because, like, 2 parallel lives, Doubling Season. Pretty crazy. Toothy's an 8/8. Don't be evasion. Plaxcaster Frogling, Graph 3. Target creature with a +1 counter on it can gain Shroud until end of turn. It's a 6/6. It's pretty good. Yeah, I think we're on the minus Elspeth. No attacks. Could have at least eaten our tokens. Opponent's down to 1 card in hand. Brokkos is up to 9 cards in hand. Some lands won't untap. It's good. There's a Great Henge. X is the power among creatures we control. That is currently 5. Pretty reasonable cost reduction. I think we're gonna destroy all the big creatures here. We can't let Toothy get any bigger. So Toothy's gonna leave the battlefield. Opponent's gonna draw, I think, 7 cards. All right. You know, I'm feeling the Great Henge. Let's get that going. Oh, it's only X2 minus X2. Okay, so how much mana do we actually have? We have 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 mana. So we could go like Ulamog into Great Henge. Let's tap Sisay, see what we can get. I think I'm going to try Avacyn right here because I'm starting to think about that Chroma's Vengeance. Let's get Avacyn. Recap will trigger. Opponent's going to cancel our Avacyn. Yep, said please stop making me use my removal. I need it for other things. Well, I think you need it exactly for our deck. Although we don't know what Brokkos just tutored for. What's their graveyard look like? Their commander's in their graveyard, so I don't know. Living Death, maybe? No, it doesn't look like there's enough value off for a Living Death. We get to draw a card, though. Let's see what we draw. It's a Zendikar Resurgent. Well, that's awkward. I don't think we can actually cast anything else here. We can cast our 1,000-year elixir. So our big play getting thwarted right there. Also why I didn't try the Ulamog. I suppose I could have planned it better, at least to like... Oh, yes, we found there was a land hiding behind this Karamitra that's exiled. So at some point we can untap Sisay and get an extra thing, which I'll probably look at doing. What's interesting in this game is like I feel like everyone's kind of playing a value deck. No one has really been putting a lot of pressure on the board, especially like in the early stuff. Like I'm just thinking about the clock versus like one of my Aurelia decks and, you know, the way Aurelia plays where it presents a lot of pressure. No one's really providing that much pressure at this moment. So I know we blew up some of the big stuff and Brokkos got shot, probably unnecessarily, but the way you beat a value deck is by applying pressure to it and not letting them just sit back and do all the things they want to do. And so far that hasn't really happened, but opponents also kind of valuing a bit themselves. I just feel like with Sisay as our commander and the ability to tutor, that does give us a big leg up in that department, being that the other Sisay hasn't been back to play for quite some time. So Jungle Hollow for opponent gains a life. A Loyal Drake for opponent. Yeah, that's pretty good at drawing cards. And this may actually be some of that pressure we talked about. No haste, though. But opponents have a little bit of commander damage on them. They will get to draw a card on their turn. Yep. My plan is going to be try and get the Zendikar Resurgent in. But the way the counterspells have been going, I don't know how well that's going to go. Opponent's going to send a 3/3 our way. Yeah, we're at 39 still, so I feel confident we can just take that. It's turn 10. And this is what I was saying earlier. This is what you don't want. You don't want a player that's got some sort of strong value deck being on turn 10 with 40 life combo decks. Any deck that wants to like sit back and just not be in the fray hasn't been committing all of its resources to like either killing someone or blowing up someone else's stuff. You don't want people to be able to sit back. End step, opponent creates an 8/8 Kraken. Yep, that'll put a little pressure on the board. You know, it took surprisingly longer than I thought for that Ominous Seas to really kind of do its thing. Even with the Honden out. Although, I did expect them to follow up with like another Honden at some point. We really haven't seen it. So, a second Honden probably speeds that clock up quite a bit. But, hasn't happened yet. So, Ominous Seas back to 4 counters. Sisay, back to play. Do they have a Wooburg stack? 1, 2, 3. Does not look like it. They have a Wilderness Reclamation. Now they do. Yeah. Okay. So I think we're about to start seeing some shrines. And unfortunately with Avacyn going down, I'm still like, don't really want to use this. Ideally, oh man, I don't know if we're going to have the mana to do this. I doubt it. But if we could go Zendikar Resurgent, Mistveil Plains Avacyn back to the bottom, tap Captain Sisay, and then get Avacyn and then a Chroma's Vengeance, that would be the best thing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. It seems like a lot of mana. That's a Rite of Replication kicked, targeting the Kraken? Oh yeah, because they're going to get double the Krakens? That's going to force us into the board wipe. If they dropped Concordant Crossroads, some people going to be hurting. Opponent's got a counterspell. That's probably a thing to use it on. No counterspell. That's a bunch of 8/8 Krakens. 20 of them, because it's doubled twice. So now, I mean, it has to be the board wipe. All right, end step, we're going to use the 1,000-year elixir on our Sisay. Get that forest hiding behind the Karamitra that's been exiled. Tap the old Sisay. I think I'm just going to go for a legendary land. I want to make our next land drop. Let's count everything up, I guess. 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 mana available. It'll take us 7 to get the Zendikar Resurgent in, which leaves us 5 left over, which is 10, which would be enough to go for Avacyn, but not enough to get rid of all the tokens. Maybe we go for like an Ugin and just Ugin for 0? Or maybe Ugin for... what would 2 get us? 2 gets a few things. Or maybe, you know what? Actually, we're in a place where we can just Ugin for, like, a bunch. Because we would lose Rikai, we would lose Sisay, and a couple tokens. It's, like, not that big of a deal. Okay, Ugin it is. Brings us back to our turn. There's the other Ugin. Colorless spells cost 2 less. Very cool. So let's go Zendikar Resurgent. Tap Sisay. Forgot to get that legendary land. Might do that right now. We're all out of legendary lands. Okie dokie. Maybe Thran Temporal Gateway? Yeah, I think I like Thran Temporal Gateway. See if we can cut back on some of our mana expenditure. Then get... Let's see. If we go 1, 2, 3... No, that won't work. Okay, so straight to Big Ugin. We get to draw a card. It's a Scavenger Grounds. Ugin for 6, I think? This should clear out a lot of stuff. We will lose Rikai, but we've drawn quite a bit. We've got our Sisay thing going. Stifle on this would be pretty bad. Oh, it's a Growth Spiral. Okay. So Ugin cleans up the board. Many, many things getting exiled. Captain Sisay to the command zone. Play the Scavenger Grounds. And then let's drop in this Thran Temporal Gateway. This should help us next turn. Karamitra does come back to play for us. It was under the enchantment, whatever Oblivion Ring type enchantment it was. Prison Realm. So yeah, really cleaned up the board right there. A lot of stuff. Still a few artifacts over here, but we came out of that very far ahead with Karamitra. Still got our 1,000-year. Zendikar Resurgent is basically a win condition. Still got our Ugin, which needs to be attacked. Otherwise, it will continue to be annoying. And now we've got a Thran Temporal Gateway to cheat some big stuff into play. So, feeling pretty good. Still don't have exactly things to present like lethal on our opponents, but the slow value death is where we're heading. So, opponents still got 10 cards in hand. Could be a lot of things there. If they have a combo of any sort, that could get us. Most of our like lock pieces, hate pieces went down at some point. So, Dismal Backwater for opponent gains a life. The foil to our deck right now would be a couple things. A combo, just assembling some sort of combo, or something with haste. I'm thinking red, but green has a lot of haste too, with like Crater Hoof and Concordant Crossroads, things like that. Nyx Bloom Ancient is a good start. That's how you get that train going. But yeah, so now that we're tapped out right now, if someone had like a bunch of swords in play, like I'm thinking, like Aurelia would be a pretty good answer to what we have going. It's like, okay, exile all the non-colored stuff, then, you know, cast a creature with haste, put some swords on it, and swing in for big commander damage. Usually pretty good. Opponent taps up for a lot of mana. Looks like 12 plus 5 is 17. A Genesis Wave would be a thing. Villainous Wealth, also good. Any X spell. Torment would be very good. Impervious Greatworm, 16 indestructible. It's pretty good. If we can get our Avacyn back, that's not too worrisome, at least until they put Trample on it, which they probably will. Ooh, hey, they just mutated their commander onto it, which will, in fact, give it Trample. So now their Trample is a 16 and 16 indestructible. That's actually not the easiest thing to get rid of. That does sort of create a problem for us. What do we do now? Take a look at the deck list. Cultivate for opponent. Oh, we exile it with Ulamog. That's what we do with it, of course. Which is already in hand. All right, we got that covered. Sisay coming back to play. Yep. If Pyr Toothy doesn't have anything big right here, we're going to have a wild turn. Steelbane Hydra for opponent. X counters on it, X being 12. And they can pay 3, remove a counter from it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. It's pretty good. I might have left some mana up to shoot our Zendikar Resurgent. But they did not. They passed like that. Brings it back to our turn. All right. Oh, let's get ready for this wild turn. We draw a Soul Ring. Tap the Scavenger Grounds. Get the Soul Ring into play. Actually, belay that. Tap the Thran Temporal Gateway. Get the Ugin into play. The Soul Ring is now free. Cast the Ulamog. Karamitra will trigger, Zendikar Resurgent will trigger, Ulamog will trigger, exile the Steelbane Hydra and the Impervious Great Worm Brokkos. Zendikar Resurgent, Katakis, I don't know if we need that right now. Get a land, get a forest. Next, Bolt Sisay Weatherlight for 3. Use Ugin the Ineffable to destroy the Nyx Bloom Ancient. Play the Great Henge for double green. Why does it have cost reduction on it? Why? Recast our commander. Zendikar Resurgent will trigger, Karamitra will trigger. get another forest. We draw... Ooh, Eldamri's Call. Find a non-legendary creature if we need to. Great Henge will trigger. Looks like we have 7 mana left. A little bit of cost reduction on colorless. We can Rishkar's Expertise. That seems pretty good in this moment. Oh, we have a little extra mana with the Great Henge, so we'll use that. Want to get Avacyn back to the bottom. Put Avacyn on the bottom. So use the Mistveil Plains. It goes back. And then finish up with the Rishkar's Expertise right here. We draw 10 cards. Oh, Swivel Boots. We don't have enough to equip them. Oh, sadness. Sadness. Any lock pieces that we can drop in? I say let's go for the Thalias. That keeps us from dying to some random hasty Craterhoof type thing. Boots into something big. That'll trigger Karamitra and Zendikar Resurgent. Oh, there's the Lightning Greaves. Just missed them, of course. Get another land. You know what, though? The Lightning Greaves are free. That worked out because of the Ugin. Nice. All right, getting there. That comes in. Great Henge will trigger. Oh my, we're having the turn. Just drawing all the cards, doing all the things. Do we have a land play left? Play this forest. We do have a land play left. Play the Lightning Greaves. Oh, well, in that case, play the Swiftwood Boots. Equip onto the Ulamog. Equip to the Karamitra, I guess. It's going to leave 1 mana floating, which is a little awkward, but is what it is. I guess we could tap Sisay, get another thing in hand. Shalai helps us close out the game, I think, a little bit. Maybe next turn. Use that to untap the Sisay. Go to combat. Let's just work on Zombie right here. They've got the most cards. They tutored a bunch, which makes me scared. So Ulamog and Karamitra their way. Ulamog will do the exile top 20 thing. Things we probably don't need. Probably live without a rampant growth. Do we take the mana to cultivate? Probably not. I think we'll be okay without cultivate. We've got a lot more to discard. Do we need another Planeswalker? Smothering Tithe, I'm sure we'll be okay without. Eldamri's, I think we'll be okay without. Kataki's, don't feel like we need. Discard the Forest. Harmonize will be okay. And we are left with a hand that looks like this. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. That's an Eternal Witness for opponent. What kind of nastiness do they have in their graveyard? Got a Nyx Bloom Ancient, got a Diabolic Revelation. Both of those are pretty good. They're going for a Diabolic Tutor. Sure. Probably got to be a Deluge. But Deluge for 10 is a lot of life. Diabolic Tutor. No, they've got more mana than that. They can go... Well, it's got to be something that exiles. This thing's indestructible. This thing is a ridiculous card. Like, we saw our opponent's indestructible stack there, which, if we didn't have an Ulamog, would be very scary. Like, that would be a thing that will probably kill you, but nope. Ulamog says no. The more you see it, the more you realize just how crazy it is. Opponent's on 6 right now, so it can't be a Rift. But, given this situation, they really just want to blow up our stuff. And that's a Living Death. Yep, that'll get some things done. Tap Sisay. Get ourselves... what do we get? An Elish Norn? Avacyn? Let's get an Avacyn. Living Death will get rid of the Ulamog. Sisay to the command zone. Ooh, we get a Gaddock of Vorinclex and a Kataki's back to play. Nice. Also, that triggers Great Henge 3 times. So ridiculous. Yeah, the key to beating this board state is just don't let this deck get to this board state. But it's a ramp deck. Ramp decks are, they're strong. You need certain tools to fight them. Like, just basic creature removal doesn't really get you there. It's where you start thinking about things like Winter Orbs and God Pharaoh's Statue, or just being super aggressive, Voltron, that sort of stuff. Just don't let the game go late against the value deck. We draw an Illusionist Bracers, pretty good. Couple lands. Opponent gets their Nyx Bloom Ancient back. Yep. The fact that big spells are off the table now makes me feel pretty safe. Opponent's going to have to pay for their artifacts. And that's going to be tapping lands into the Ulamog, which is a real bad time. Although what they could have done is just tap the Star Compass into itself. That's a play that you will see the more you play like high power and competitive type games. Really anywhere people are running Kataki. You kind of figure that out once you see it enough times. But I totally get it. Kataki is not a thing that shows up all the time. So if you're not used to playing against it, then sure. Gateway Plaza coming in for opponent. Yeah, that's another rough thing to tap into the Vorinclex. Maybe this deck needs just like a Blackblade Reforged, just something that says do more damage now. Also, I haven't stacked as hard as we could with this deck. Just kind of reading the room, it like doesn't feel entirely necessary against the opponents we're playing right now. There are many situations where, yeah, we could just go slam Winter Orb right now or something like that, and be super nasty, but it's not feeling necessary. So Chasm Skulker's back to play, Mana Gorger is back to play, and Plaxcaster Frogling is back to play. Opponent draws a card, puts a counter on the thing. And that is one of the reasons why Ugin is so good, because it exiles so much nonsense. We didn't exile those, someone else did, but we did exile a number of things. Oh, Ulamog exiled all that stuff. Brings us back to our turn. We have a bunch of artifacts to pay for. So we're going to tap up the Great Henge and the Soul Ring right here, pay for this stuff. Oh, we have tripled mana. Alright, since I mistapped, we'll use the Thran Dynamo right here. So we'll tap up for exactly 4 since our lands are tripled. Drop in the Avacyn. I'm just going to trigger the Plaxcaster Frogling. Triggers the Great Henge. We draw a forest, play a forest. Play Miri. Triggers Mana Gorger and Zendikar Resurgent. There's a Defense of the Heart. Great Henge. Shalai. Path to Exile. Opponent lets the Plaxcaster go, I think just to save time on the triggers here. Cast Mangara. There's an Ajani. Can't cast it though, because of Gaddock Teeg. Great Henge. That's at the Fairy's Protection. Ooh, yeah, that's good. Put boots on Shalai and Avacyn. Exile a card with Ugin, make a 2/2. Pump with Shalai. The pump effect is green. What if we put bracers on it? Yeah, let's put bracers on it. Opponent says they would have had it if it wasn't for Teeg last round. Yeah, it's nasty. Put the thing on Shalai. Game's getting really laggy. Oh. Shalai has boots on it. We gotta move the boots. Move the boots. Then put the thing on. Been trying to get to a place where we'll have, like, not a weird amount of mana left, but I don't think that's possible, given our mana situation in this moment. Move the boots back to Shalai. I guess we'll go to combat like that. A couple ground creatures into middle player. Flyers into zombie. This big one in right there. Make sure no blocks. Start activating Shalai. This will get us 2 activations with the bracers. Do it again. And one more. This should eliminate 2 players. So 2 players go down. Finally getting some people to exit the game. Turn 12. And that'll bring it to our end step. We need to discard a bunch. Just discard the lands. Defense of the Heart. Can't cast our Planeswalkers. Get rid of those. So we just had 2 wild turns back to back. And that's what a value deck will do. That's what mana doubling will do. Zendikar Resurgent was a big part of that. Opponent really needs some stuff to get out of this one. They probably have to start by getting rid of the Gaddock Teeg, and then after that probably need... I mean, really what they need is permanent removal. When you think about Rift doesn't necessarily solve it. Unless they can, like, if they could grow these creatures, make them huge and put us on like a 2-turn clock and then rift us to death, maybe, but we have so much stuff. But we have Teferi's Protection, which means they need like 4 pieces of interaction. It's just like so hard to do. And given their mana situation, like they've done all right mana-wise. Like they're definitely stayed about par with the turns. 13, yeah, it looks like exactly par with the turns. So not too bad, but like we're just producing so much mana. Oh, and we still have a Vorinclex, so anything they do, we'll just tap them out. Inspiring Call. Draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. They gain indestructible. Sure. Digging for answers. Chasm Skulker. Get some counters. I forgot to activate our Planeswalkers also. No. I activated the one. I forgot to activate the other. Oops. Was trying not to ham it any more than I needed to, but this deck wasn't able to present lethal without just taking a lot of actions. It took us a lot of actions to, like, put a lot of creatures into play and then pump them multiple times. So, in the interest of like trying not to take forever and just really ham it to death. But even though I'm sure to them it probably feels like I'm doing that, I'm just literally trying to get to a place of having lethal damage. Opponent does a bunch of things. More lands into the Vorinclex. Truth and Justice. And they scoop right there. Yeah, that's fair. That is totally fair. Yeah, so I've had a look at two Sisay decks in the past 2 weeks, and Sisay is still a really strong commander. Looking at this particular deck list, I felt like everything about this deck was really well balanced. The mana curve, just, we had removal, we had ramp, we had big stuff to do, just, we had hate bears, so, I felt like we had a good mixture of everything. I don't think there's too much I would change. Maybe a Blackblade Reforged just to give some ability to close the game out just a bit faster. It did feel like I really had to just do a million things at the end to try and present lethal on our opponents. But that was also a product of this wasn't a very aggressive game. There wasn't a ton of pressure. Removal came down at just the right time to keep the Brokkos from really threatening super hard. If opponents' life totals are lower, if they're all at 20, then Ulamog can close it out much, much faster. But the fact that everyone was still pretty healthy through most of the game really means that this deck isn't suited to really slam out 120 damage super easily. It's suited to just value you to death, and I thought it did that beautifully. So yeah, maybe something in the deck just to close it out a little bit faster, maybe a Finale of Devastation, just, if you're Ulamog with haste or something like that, plus the X damage seems like maybe a very reasonable place to be. Just something for some extra damage. Blackblade Reforged, I said, totally fine. But I would expect that most games you get into aren't going to look like this exactly. Like I said, it's just a very low pressure kind of game, and it allowed us to sit back a little bit more, allowed us to not have to stacks like crazy and things like that. So, yeah, that's kind of what I saw from the deck. But yeah, otherwise it felt super well balanced, like the mana curve, like the ramp, removal balance, just everything felt really good. Sisay tutoring up for whatever you need when you need it. So good. So can't say much more than that. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching. I want to thank my awesome Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. If you want to help support the channel and vote on which decks I play next, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. If you're planning to buy Commander cards, be sure to use the TCG affiliate player link, as it helps support the channel and it doesn't cost you anything.